What is a supernatural event that happened in your life that just cannot be explained? One night I had a dream about my grandpa, who had died almost 20 years prior. We were in his home, and he kept telling me, "We need to clean the house, we need to get the house ready." When I asked him why, he just said, "She's coming home." My grandma, his wife of 50 years, died the next day. We're back again with some more supernatural and weird, crazy stories, so I hope you're ready. I had a premonition I'd be involved in a car accident one morning on the way to work as I got out of bed. It was a very strange thought, and I considered taking an alternate route, but did not. As I got onto the highway, it was raining, and a car flew past me, hydroplaned and slammed into my car. Wow, so you're getting access to psychic abilities and you're just not even using them? Come on, what a waste. Working as a night security for a small office at the sanitation plant, building was a single entrance, and you had to check in at the security station to get in or out. A worker shows up and checks in, saying he needs to take care of a few things and grab some stuff. So I check in his ID and flip a few lights for him, then go back about my business. Fast forward a few hours, and my shift is about to end. I still haven't seen the guy come back, so I go patrol the building to find him, and literally can't find him anywhere. He's not in any of the areas I turned the lights on for him. No other lights are on. He's not in any other rooms. I stopped by security to see if we just missed each other and he was trying to leave, but nobody is there. I do a second patrol, and still no signs. At this point, I went to check the cameras to see where he went, but he's not on a single camera except the one covering the entrance and security station. He turns down a hallway and never shows up on the cameras down said hall. At this point, I logged it as incidental, and I got out right as the relief shift showed up. Next day, my boss calls me and says that worker had been on vacation out of state for several days, and wouldn't return for several more. Nobody could offer an explanation to what happened. You know, there's probably about 100 different theories we could come up with to this story, but the one I want to go with is that this guy wanted to take a week off to test out his invisibility powers. I woke up in the middle of the night to a man standing next to the bed staring at my significant other. He was slightly translucent, and I figured it was just another sleep paralysis episode. I had them before, so I knew the drill, and rolled over and went back to sleep. Normally, being able to move isn't part of sleep paralysis, and immediately my heart began to race as I realized I need to roll back over and check what I saw. The person was still standing there, staring at my partner. Then he made eye contact with me, stared at me for a while before turning around and walking to the wall, slowly fading away with each step. The next morning, my partner wakes up looking like crap and said that she had the worst night's sleep because she kept having the feeling that someone was watching her. Glad we no longer live in that house. I'm not really sure how people just go through seeing a dark figure in your room in the middle of the night without making a scene out of that. Like, just scream and turn the lights on or something. When I was 9 or 10, it was a bad year. I was regularly physically and emotionally abused. But that year, I was sexually abused. On top of all that, I started having serious mental health issues. Well, when things were at their absolute worst, I started having dreams of this blonde lady telling me to hold on, that things would get better. It was so comforting and peaceful, and continued as long as the extreme abuse continued. I didn't know who she was, I just figured I imagined her. Well, things finally simmer down, and the dreams stop. About a year later, Mom was going through old photo albums, and my blood freezes. I see the blonde woman from my dreams. I ask who she is. Turns out, it was an aunt who had died shortly before I was born. You know, it's kind of crazy that we still just don't know that much about dreams. And what I think is so crazy is that we have thoughts in our head all the time. We're always visualizing and thinking about something. Yet when we're asleep, we don't really have control over it. Yet our thoughts kind of take control over us. So I think there's still a lot to be discovered about what actually happens with dreams. When I was a kid, about 10 to 12-ish, I was carrying a load of laundry upstairs home alone while Mom was out doing errands. We have this weird carpet runner over our hardwood stairs that's only really attached at the top of the flight, but otherwise not fitted or secured to each individual stair. So naturally, I step on an air bubble of carpet with my vision obscured by the laundry, and fall backwards while bear hugging a bunch of blankets. I specifically remember thinking, well, guess I'm about to die, while almost airborne with just my big toe left on the carpet when I felt 2 hands, one on either side of my shoulder blades, give me a firm shove that launched me back up the step and diagonally against the stair rail. I assumed my mom somehow silently came back early without announcing herself and turned around to thank her while clinging to the railing, but no one was there. I scurried upstairs to put my things down while calling her name and walked out the house afterwards to check if any doors were unlocked, or if her car was there. I finally resorted to calling her cell where she told me she was hitting up a few more stores. I still feel like there's a presence on the stairwell, like someone's watching, but in a protective way rather than sinisterly. Well, it's a lot nicer to have a ghost that pushes you up the stairs than ones that push you down the stairs. I had a sort of demonic mask on my shelf, and one day while I was working at my desk, no more than 4 feet away from it, it just flew off the shelf and shattered on the floor. It didn't fall off the shelf, it was like someone threw it across the room. The baffling part to me is that I'm the one who made the mask, so I know it's not cursed by some voodoo hex or something. Oh yeah, that's the weird part, is that you made it yourself. It wouldn't be weird if somebody else gave it to you, because who knows what they could have done to it to make it want to jump off the shelf. I had extremely vivid dreams of relatively inconsequential moments in my future life that I had nonetheless kept locking away in a little corner of my head. And when those little moments actually occur, I get insane deja vu that throws me off until I remember the dreams. It's a very bizarre thing, but it ultimately doesn't mean much to me. You know, maybe it's something we needed to train for, but what if we could actually harness the power of our dreams and actually be able to tell what's coming in the future? Because as it stands, it's hard to tell what's something that's going to happen in the future versus what's just some super bizarre thing that your mind has cooked up tonight. My siblings and I all had the same dream on the same night a year ago. It was exactly 1 year after my mom died, and we all had a dream about her, and she was in the same place and was speaking to us. She reassured us that she was okay, and she was with her mom and my dead siblings, and that her dad is in the bad place. The next day we all realized we had the same dream. We even all independently drew a picture of the place we saw her, and wrote down the name of the place it resembled. Most of my siblings took this as an actual message from my mom, but my youngest sister and I like to believe that we have all developed some freaky hive mind low-level telepathy. Now, if I were Joe Rogan and I read this story, I would immediately say, "Dude, you ever tried DMT?" When I was going to my family's home, I got in an SUV going down the road. This was in Bangladesh at the time, and after taking the SUV, the next 2 hours would be highway going down a forest. I was sitting shotgun, and along the highway there was an old man walking down the highway. He was hitchhiking, and the driver decided to pick him up. He insisted on sitting in my seat, and I obliged, as he was an older man. About an hour down the drive, our car collided with the bus, and the shotgun seat was mangled up. We all got out, and we looked around, but we couldn't find the old man that insisted on taking my seat anywhere. Stories like these aren't rare, but I didn't believe him. We all know the man sat in my seat, and we all saw him, but he was nowhere to be found. Well, let's hope that he got away, or he was a ghost or something, and wasn't just, destroyed. Super minor compared to many in this thread. The night before Thanksgiving 3 years ago, I was across the country at my parents', driving back to theirs with my now wife from a friend's house. As we draw near, there is some type of bundle in the middle of the road. I stopped and pull off to move it, and it turned out to be a barred owl that got clipped by a car. Long story short, I spent the rest of that night getting the owl into a puppy cage, gave it some food and water, and the next day dropped it off at the Wildlife Rescue Center. I got home the next week, all the way across the country, New Jersey to Oregon. I stepped outside, and there was the barred owl sitting on my fence watching me. It was gone by the time I got back, but now I know I'm straight with all owls. Well, I hope you use this to your advantage someday and you create a big owl army. I was driving home from work after picking up my baby late at night. Not many cars around out on the country roads. The one stoplight out there was red for me, so I stop. It turns green, and have a sudden voice or thought or whatever in my head saying, "Don't go yet." Nothing is coming. I'm still sitting at a green light. Right as I left the brake, a semi comes flying through this red light. I was shook. See, at least this person uses their psychic abilities better than that first guy. Many years ago, my parents had separated, and my father was planning on taking a trip across the country to California. He was pretty excited about it. I talked to him the day before he's leaving, wish him well, and tell him I'll talk to him after he gets to California. The day of his trip, he calls me and tells me he decided last minute not to go, refuses to really get into why, just says he changed his mind. Seems really odd for something that he'd been planning for a couple months. That night, I'm sitting at my girlfriend's house, and we're watching the news, and they report that the U.S. Air Flight 1493, the flight my dad was supposed to be on, collided with another aircraft while landing in Los Angeles. About 25% of the people on the flight were killed. Hard to know how my dad would have made out, but it really depended on where you were sitting. It was several months before he finally told me that the night before he was supposed to leave, he had an extremely vivid dream that he died in a fiery plane crash. So vivid it scared him out of flying that day. My dad is a Marine Corps Vietnam veteran who saw combat. I can only imagine how vivid the dream must have been, to scare him out of getting on that plane that morning. Final Destination 1. That's all I'm gonna say on this one. We had a kitten-producing cat when I was about 6 or 7 years old. We knew it had kittens since it was pregnant for a while and then wasn't. We had no idea where the kittens were, which was an issue. I was curious about it and looked right at the cat, thinking to myself, where are your kittens? But without saying anything, if that makes sense. My imagination immediately went to the location. Our cat could jump into it from pillars on the side of the porch through some damaged boards right above our porch. I knew they were around. I dashed over there, mounted the stone pillar, and peered through the gap in the boards. The kittens were right in front of me. I've never experienced another event like it in my entire life. You know, I don't actually know if Faye ever had kittens. I don't think she did. I got her when she was 4 years old, but she has like this really droopy middle section like on her stomach. just tons of loose skin that just hangs around. Maybe she just used to be fat. That's probably more likely. In high school, I was getting peer pressured into doing something I didn't want to do. I would have gotten into a lot of trouble had a teacher come by, but I felt I didn't have a choice. I distinctively remember asking in my head, if I have a guardian angel right now, please pull the fire alarm or something. I kid you not, at that exact second, the fire alarm went off. This never happens at this school. It was so unlikely. I didn't expect it to actually happen. Nearly crapped my pants. We immediately went to the assembly area along with the rest of the school, and I got out of the situation. Turns out at that moment, someone in the school had accidentally triggered the fire alarm. I spent the rest of the day in shock, honestly. I don't know if this counts as supernatural, but what even are the chances? That day introduced me to the idea of guardian angels, and I've had many similar occasions since then where just in the nick of time, I've gotten out of potentially extremely bad situations, either due to insane luck, or the nudge of something looking out for me. Well, that's all the stories I feel like putting in this video. Like, probably at least 50% of these involved either having a feeling that somebody had died when it turned out to be true, or people getting visited by past dead relatives. And, while those stories sound really great on their own, I hate repetition and I don't want to read 20 of the same story. But other than that, we had some pretty good ones. But anyway, that's all for tonight.